You know I love music. And every time I hear something hot, it makes me want to move. It makes me want to have fun. But it's something about this joint right here. This joint right here, it makes me want to... Let it go.
We're here to talk about the strong black woman syndrome and how it's detrimental to us black women as a population.
Beyond practicing self-care is really owning the word no. Too often, we confuse free time with available time. They are not the same thing.
It's not aggression, it's depression. It's not an attitude, it's a lack of gratitude for everything you do.
But what these ladies are telling us is to pause, which is very contradictory to capitalism structure that we live in right now. But if we're not well, nobody's well, right?
I went through a journey maybe 2 years ago trying to find a therapist, and I almost needed a therapist to go through the process of finding a therapist.
Black men aren't allowed to be sick. Black women aren't allowed to be sick. You know, if they are sick, we've got to take some aspirin or, take some Tussin. Lay down, lay down and drink some ginger ale and watch Wheel of Fortune.
The biggest challenge that we have is like not showing others our pain, not shedding those tears or speaking up, because then everybody thinks you're fine.
On Thursday at 1 o'clock when I'm talking to you, I need validation, I need empathy, I need understanding, and I need you to dust me off so I can get back out here and answer some more of these emails. But if I'm not talking to a woman or a man or a clinician that can recognize that and understand that for me, it's not a helpful session. In trauma-informed learning communities where someone like that school nurse, instead of turning to me and saying, "What's wrong with you?" will ask, "What happened to you?"
I ain't gonna let nothing get in my way.
Hey, girl, hey, it is your girl, Regina Renee. Welcome back to another episode of the Strong Black Woman Support Group podcast. I am your host, and I'm a strong black woman in recovery. Keeping it a buck, keeping it a bean, keeping it 100. I will be joined by my honorary co-host today, Erica V, and our guest, Monique Williams. And if you're new here, I just want to say I'm so happy that you found this space. This podcast is all about creating a safe, supportive community for Black women who are tired of doing the most, tired of wearing the mask of the strong Black woman like it's our only option, and feeling like we have to be everything to everyone all the time. Here, we're all about redefining what it means to be a strong Black woman on our terms. Now, today's episode is about something that I've personally struggled with: making peace a priority. In theory, making peace a priority sounds easy, but in practice, it can definitely be hard. Life and everything that comes with it can get so hectic that prioritizing peace feels like a luxury we can't afford. But here's the real tea. Peace isn't just a luxury. It's a necessity. It's what keeps us grounded, what helps us navigate the challenges that come our way, and what allows us to show up fully in our lives without losing ourselves in the process. Now, let me ask you something. How often do you find yourself letting others steal your joy? Engaging in arguments that aren't even worth it, or on the flip side, staying silent when you should be speaking up just to keep the peace? Today, we're going to talk about how you can protect your peace, set all those all-important boundaries, and truly start putting yourself first without the guilt. Now, I'm going to say that last piece for the people in the back: without the guilt. And to help us on this journey, I'm so excited to introduce our special guest for today's episode, Monique Williams. Monique is a licensed mental health psychotherapist with over a decade of experience under her belt. Through her private practice, Strength Redefined, she's been dedicated to helping high achieving Black professional women prioritize their self care and mental wellness. Monique's approach is unique and holistic. She integrates cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness, and a strength based approach, among other techniques, to tailor her sessions to the specific needs of Black women. Monique is also a fierce advocate for redefining strength and self care and encouraging her clients to look beyond the surface and truly invest in their mental wellness. Now, Monique is not only an amazing therapist, but she's also an amazing speaker. She actually spoke at last year's Strong Black Women Redefined conference, and she'll be on the keynote discussion panel at the conference this year. And I'm so excited about that. Today, she's going to share some of her wisdom with us: how to maintain our peace of mind, why it's crucial to set boundaries, and how we can redefine strength in a way that really serves us. Now, I know it's lunchtime, but I do encourage you to make this a productive lunch. So go ahead and grab a pen and a pad and get ready to soak in some knowledge. So, hey, Monique. Hey, Erica. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Thank you.
Indeed. I'm glad it's the end of the week and we are ending it with something positive and productive.
You know what? I hear that.
Absolutely.
Now, before we get into this, Monique, two things. Can you first, I know I gave like a brief intro of yourself, but I always like to hear from the horse's mouth. If you can briefly introduce yourself. And two, can you please share with us why prioritizing peace is so crucial for Black women, especially those of us who are high achievers?
Absolutely. So I think you gave a great introduction and thank you for that. I also loved your excitement about the conference and speaking and participating again. This is going to be my third year participating and I will be there for as long as Regina will have me. Wonderful introduction. One thing I do want to correct, it's actually over 2 decades of experience. So I have been in the helping field as a helping professional for about 20 years, and I've been focused on clinical work specifically for over 15 years. So I feel like you pretty much identified me. I run my own practice. It's called Strength Redefined. I'm also an author of a series of growth book journals. So that's a combination of a workbook and a journal that teaches practical skills that help to reduce feelings associated with anxiety, depression, stress, trauma, and life transitions. The unfortunate reality of the system in which we live as people of color in America is that we're not always going to have access to the same resources that everyone else has for many reasons. And some of them are systematic and that cannot be dismantled overnight. But that doesn't mean that everyone doesn't deserve access to learning some of these skills to be able to better manage the everyday challenges associated with being melanated and being a woman in America. So those are the only things that I would add. Your introduction was awesome. I love what I do. It comes from a place of passion and purpose. I specialize in supporting Black women, especially high achieving Black women. And if we are just keeping it real, how many Black women are not high achieving? So many of us have been taught that that is our responsibility and that's what's expected, and it becomes an innate message, and then we operate from that place, which leads into your second question about peace. That's exactly why it's so important for us to understand and conceptualize what peace means for us as individuals. No one else gets to define what peace looks like for me or for Regina or for Erica or for any of you who are listening or will be listening. If you have peace, no matter what the circumstance is, you have what you need to be able to take care of you with whatever presents until the storm lightens up, eventually goes away. And in the midst of that, you don't have to lose pieces of yourself. You don't have to be in a place where you're feeling overwhelmed or like you don't have the necessary skills to be able to do what needs to be done. So I feel like peace is important for all of us. I think that as women who are often treated as though we are at the bottom of the totem pole, but despite the fact that we're often the ones running things behind the scenes, we need to be in a position where we understand how to prioritize our peace because no one else is going to do it for us. And then in addition to that, you add being a melanated woman, and according to research, women and particularly women of color are the least protected humans alive. So that makes it absolutely a priority to be able to identify what peace means for you, understand what it means to actually incorporate that into action, and then implement that.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Thank you so much for that. And I totally agree. And Erica, I'm gonna let you chime in. But can you first just let the people know who you is?
Who I is. I bees on the block. Hi, everybody. My name is Erica Bernardo. I am Regina's longtime friend of about 15 plus years. I'm happy to be back. I was here yesterday. I am in the nonprofit space on the tech side. So I feel like this conversation would be helpful for people in that industry as well, because nonprofit space is tough, whether people believe it or not. There are a lot of stressors that go into working for nonprofits and giving of service and giving back in general. So happy to be here. Monique will be asking you a bunch of questions. So let's go. I love it.
So I think my next question is for you, Monique. Like, what are some common obstacles that prevent us Black women, especially us who are high achieving, from making peace a priority? You mentioned some of the cultural obstacles, some of the societal obstacles. Can you say like something specific that like really prevents us from making peace a top priority?
Absolutely. I think that one of the most important things to highlight when it comes to that, or one of the first important things to highlight, is mindset. Our mindset is influenced by so many different things. It's influenced by family, it's influenced by society, by spiritual beliefs, by professional environments. And depending on what your mindset looks like, if the thought that you have, the beliefs that you have are that being someone who prioritizes your peace is somehow selfish or somehow wrong or not what you're supposed to do, then that's the immediate hurdle, because from a clinical perspective, our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all connected to one another. So if you are thinking to yourself, for example, I'm not enough, or I don't deserve to have peace, then the likelihood is that's going to affect how you feel. And then how you feel and those thoughts are naturally going to affect your actions, making it less likely that you're going to prioritize actually finding and implementing and prioritizing your peace. But when we learn to be intentional about understanding that connection between our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and understanding what each of those three components actually mean for us as individuals, then we're in a better position to be able to be intentional about shifting the way we think about things, redefining, as is the name of my practice, Strength Redefined. There's so much that we need to be able to redefine in order to show up as our best selves and do that from a place of peace and understanding.
And what are some ways that you have helped folks like shift their mindset to prioritize their peace of mind?
Yeah, absolutely. A primary go-to for me is learning the difference between feelings and facts. So what we feel is not necessarily factual. And what is factual has to be able to be differentiated. But in order to differentiate the two, first you have to be able to define the two. If you feel something and you struggle to even identify what it is that you feel, then how are you going to separate feelings from facts when you can't even identify feelings? You would be mad.
I feel
Sorry?
like I feel seen.
You know, that's another thing about Black women specifically. We are very intellectualized, and that is not a bad thing. It's something that has come as a result of our experiences. The unfortunate reality is when our community is disenfranchised in the way that it has been, we see a lot of our Black men being mistreated. We see a lot of them byproducts of choices, environment, systems. There's a variety of reasons, but a lot of Black men that end up in circumstances that are not ideal, which has therefore over time affected the Black relationship, the Black home. And then Black women were put in a position where they needed to step up in a different way. Not to say we weren't already intelligent and capable and independent, but that had to be done in a different way because the structure of the family home in our community changed as a result of the many factors that I mentioned. So because of that, Black women have become really intellectualized. And what that means is we tend to rely on and depend on intellect in many, many situations. And it works for us, right? We see so many more Black-owned businesses by women. We see so many more endeavors and projects that are happening that are being led by Black women, which is great. We're making all kinds of progress in that way. But then the amazing women that show up in front of me in my one-on-one work or in my group work, oftentimes the first thing I ask is, how are you feeling at the moment? And it's a struggle to answer that question because the emotional awareness is not on the same level as the intellectualized piece. And then there's the reality that in our society, Black women are told not to feel anything. You know, we're told that we're supposed to be strong at all times and prioritize everybody else's needs above our own. So if you're focused on everyone else's needs and everyone else's emotions, then how would you be familiar with identifying your own?
Right. I have a question going back to what you mentioned earlier about high achieving women. If you
Yeah.
can define that, because some people may feel like what is that, or I don't identify as that, or how would I know if I'm a high achieving woman? Could you talk to the audience, let them know what that means so they can
Yes,
implication?
absolutely. So I think that that is something that honestly is evolving. I think that a lot of times when that is heard initially, the thought is that's like the CEO, that's the business owner, right? And of course, obviously, those people are high achieving, but there are also women like the nurse in the hospital who has spent her whole career, you know, climbing that ladder to get to the place where she's a fully credentialed nurse and she's working towards becoming a nurse manager. In essence, it's not necessarily about the position that you hold or the role that you're in, but being that woman who is constantly going after the next step, who's achieving at a high level, whatever high level means for you as an individual, but at that level where you tend to be in a position where you are supporting and taking care of others. And that often gets in the way of being intentional about how you support and take care of yourself.
And I like how you said earlier, Monique, that sometimes most of us Black women are already naturally high achieving. And I know, like, for me, I've been in situations where, like, school or different jobs or whatever, like, people were thinking I'm putting like 1,000% into it, and it's literally my 75%.
Right. Right. I absolutely agree. And that highlights the reality that high achieving looks different for different people. For that person who came from a family where they were, you know, struggling and impoverished and they went to the bachelor's level, they actually got to go to college and they're the first in their family to do that. That's somebody that's high achieving. For that family where so many people have maybe made unfortunate choices that led to imprisonment, which also has to do with society and systemic factors, getting through your life, getting out of that neighborhood, still being alive, having never been incarcerated, and simply being a productive member of society, for that person, that's high achieving too. So I think it's important to recognize the variety within that term.
Yeah, I agree with you. So you defined high achieving for us. Can you define personal joy and tell us why you feel like it's so important for us to safeguard it?
Oh, absolutely. I think that personal joy in line with peace are important components that keep us in a place that when it feels like the world is raging around us, we can still be in a stable and grounded place. And I think that gratitude has a lot to do with personal joy. When you can focus on the things that are going well, despite the things that are a challenge, you learn how to be in a place where there's joy, because happiness is often circumstantial, whereas joy can be there even when you're going through a difficult situation. And when we use gratitude practices, we're able to be more intentional about focusing on the things that are going well, the things that are within our control, the things that are working within our favor, and then capitalize on those things, which helps us to manage the things that are a challenge. So we're not ignoring the things that are a challenge, because I would never recommend avoidance, but we are allowing ourselves to use the things that are going well and the things that are within our power to be intentional about practicing gratitude, which allows us to stay in a place that is about joy and not focused on circumstance.
So do you think that's a good way to keep people from stealing your joy, is to actually be super intentional about identifying what you're grateful for?
Absolutely. That combined with boundaries. I am a huge fan of boundaries. One of my favorite words is no. And I think that as Black women, we are often told that, you know, if you say no, that's not okay, or something is wrong. It's okay to say no. And it's okay for no to be a whole sentence. You don't have to justify your no. When we set boundaries, oftentimes people receive that as something that is negative towards them, when in reality, boundaries are about me. Rules may be about other people, but boundaries are about me. It's about what works for me. It's about what does not work for me. It's about what I am and I'm not willing to do. It's about how I take care of me, prioritize my peace, maintain joy. So I think that the combination of gratitude practice and boundaries is a very healthy combination in order to be intentional about joy.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you for that. I feel like when folks assume that a boundary is about them, that it's teetering on the toxic, right? So what are some signs that someone is engaging in toxic behaviors, either like with themselves or with others?
So I want to reframe toxic as unhealthy because I think that the word toxic is so very overused now. And oftentimes when people use it, it's not even really being used within the right context. Obviously not talking about you, Regina, but I think that it's I think it's important to recognize that essentially it's about what is healthy versus what is not. And when people are making choices and or engaging in behaviors that are not healthy, that take away from your joy, that take away from your peace, that's when it starts to become clear that those are things that are not healthy and that are not serving you. A person who can't take accountability, a person who can't hold themselves accountable even when they're struggling, a person who can't recognize what a boundary is or why a boundary is important. Like these are clear indications that there are things that are unhealthy there. When you identify what you need and what you don't need because you're clearly communicating where you are and what your needs are, which is what we're each responsible for, right? I can't identify your needs. You can't identify mine. But if I am identifying my needs and that person is receiving me identifying my needs as an attack or something that they are struggling with, that's probably a clear sign that there are different levels of emotional awareness there. And as a result, it's not being received in the way that it is intended. And there's probably some work that needs to be done on the other end. And it's important for us not to take responsibility for the work that other people need to do. We're responsible for our own work, but we're not responsible for anyone else's.
Can I just say thank you for saying that? I'm sorry, I want to say just one thing. I'm gonna let you go, Erica. Can I just say thank you for saying that? And my community, Strong Black Women support group, and Mindful and Melanated, in the podcast, I try to keep it. I'm intentional about not making it male centered because I do feel like a lot of stuff like this is mental health stuff is male centered. But can I just say that I cannot stand when I hear a man says, "Oh, I need her to be my peace. I need my woman." Like, boo, no. Peace comes from within. Okay. And if you didn't know that, brothers, you need to holler at Monique Williams. Okay. So she can let you know what peace means.
I am not a fan of that either. I think it's very important for each individual to be responsible for their own needs. And if two people are coming together in a partner relationship and you're both coming together whole, then you can make each other better. You're coming with your own peace. You can support one another's peace, but we are not responsible for being what other people need.
Exactly. What were you going to say, Erica?
Speaking of that, how can people effectively disengage from toxic behaviors without feeling guilty or conflicted that, you know, they're being mean or just not being a good person in general? How could they effectively disengage?
So 2 things about that. Changing the way you think about things, so back to mindset, and boundaries. So first you have to make the decision that disengaging is what's necessary. You need to understand for yourself, not that you need to justify or explain it to anyone else, but you need to understand for yourself why disengaging is something that you need. And you need to be able to think through where that feeling of guilt is coming from. Because when we have an emotion, you know, oftentimes people view emotions as good or bad, but inherently emotions are neither good nor bad. They just are, and they are information. And so when you feel guilty, that guilt is telling you something. So I would recommend exploring that feeling of guilt from a place of curiosity, you know, asking yourself, why am I feeling this way? Where is this coming from? Are there feelings and facts here that need to be separated? Because the likelihood is that feeling is there as a result of a thought or belief that you are carrying. And if you can identify what that thought or belief is, then you can do the work to be intentional about reframing that and challenging that thought or belief with facts, because that thought and belief at that moment is directly related to a feeling. But that feeling's giving you information so that you can follow it up with action. And the action is the identification, the exploration, and then challenging that.
I was going to say that that's the hardest part for people to identify the issue. That's the main thing. Like if you can identify it, you can work towards it. But if you don't know what's happening and you don't know what's going on in general. It's like, how can you work on something if it's not, something that that's happening?
Exactly. A clear but quick example of the connection between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. If you and a girlfriend have plans and your girlfriend just doesn't show up, and your thought is, oh, so she just didn't care enough to show up. And in reality, there was an emergency. So before you have the information that there's an emergency, the thought is she didn't care enough to show up. The feeling is maybe anger or upset or disappointment or sadness. And then the behavior might be, well, I'm going to give her a piece of my mind, or I'm going to stop hanging out with her or inviting her. So now you've made a decision based on either a lack of information or faulty information or a feeling. But the flip side of that is, if the thought is, well, she didn't hang out with me or she didn't show up because she didn't want to hang out. So the work is challenging that thought to identify what is factual here. What do I factually know? What is not factual here? For example, I know that she didn't show up. That's a fact that supports this thought that I had, right? But what's a fact that does not necessarily support it? Well, she usually does show up. So then you can ask yourself, based on the facts, do I really have reason to believe that on this occasion she just didn't show up because she didn't want to hang out with me? Which then avoids having the feelings associated with the thoughts you had at first that went unchecked. And at that point, you may be feeling more open, you may be feeling content, you may be feeling curious, as opposed to what you were feeling before. And now, because we were able to shift the way we were thinking, and therefore that had a shift in how we were feeling, the action is different. So now the action might be, well, let me reach out and see what's going on, or let me make sure she's okay, or let me give it time. I'm sure she'll reach out. So that's kind of what the connection between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors can look like.
Yeah. So, and see, folks, this is why I am a staunch advocate and believer in therapy, because, and as y'all know, if you are new here, you may not know this, but I am not a licensed clinician myself. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a therapist. I'm someone who provides peer support, and there is value in getting healing through support groups and things like that. However, because we're not licensed and we didn't go to school for this, we don't have the theory and the knowledge behind different modalities like CBT and DBT. And Monique actually touched on a couple of the things that are involved in both CBT and DBT. I can vent to my girl Erica all day and every day, but she doesn't have the credentials to help. Yes, girl, I'll be venting to you. Y'all should see our text message exchanges. But anyway, that's a different podcast. She's like, no. I can vent and tell Erica how I feel all day, every day, but I'm gonna need a Monique to help me process why. Like, what's the thing behind it? And so, can you explain to me, Monique, about your integrative therapy approach and how it specifically caters to the needs of Black women?
Yes. So I am experienced and trained in a lot of different approaches. So the strength-based approach, CBT, a little bit of DBT, trained in EMDR. These are all different modalities, different approaches to therapy that come from a different perspective. But for me, the reason that I'm intentional about kind of integrating those and using whatever fits best for the person in front of me is because some people are trained in one or two things and they like to focus on simply doing those one or two things. I shouldn't say simply because there's nothing really simple about therapy. But I think it's important to be able to see the person in front of you as an individual and identify, like, based on my experience, based on the different approaches that I use, what is going to be the most effective combination that's going to be useful for the person in front of me. So that's why I use an integrative approach, because I think it's important to be able to craft something in terms of the support plan, the treatment plan, to craft what is going to be most useful for that individual.
Awesome.
So before I let Erica ask the next question, sorry, I keep cutting you off, girl. I just want to say one thing. This is what cultural competence looks like in therapy. Monique hit the nail on the head. Like she said, there may be a therapist who is a subject matter expert in two modalities, But Monique was very intentional about learning as many modalities and theories and whatever. I don't know all the technical terms, but y'all know what I'm trying to say. She's well versed in a spectrum of things, right? And so she looks at the person that's in front of her and like, what is going to work for her? Like for me, CBT doesn't work because honestly, and I'm sorry, I know I'm sitting in front of a therapist, but I think CBT is DBT is I like DBT. I like DBT over CBT because I feel like it's more action behavioral based, but it's still lacking a lot of. I feel like the person who created it just basically stole a bunch of stuff from African and Eastern philosophies, but whatever. Uh, that's a whole other topic. But the therapists that I've had and specialists that I've had, they take those concepts, but they kind of like do like a mush, like a soup of so this feeling wheel is not really working for Regina, so we're going to use this instead. This is my long-winded way of saying I do appreciate the fact that you were super intentional about learning as much as you can so that you can tailor your sessions for your clients, because I have had therapists where they was drilling CBT down my throat, and it's like I understand what you're saying, thoughts, feelings, and emotions. I understand that cycle. Intellectually I get it, but I don't get it here. And so when you have a therapist who's able to recognize that and see that and able to bring in other stuff like the EMDRs, like the TMSs and all that stuff, to me, I found that to be super helpful when I have a therapist who's not just in one, like, how you have like a doctor and they're just so like adamant about you
a general practitioner.
Yeah, you just want to they're just drilling you to take this one particular medication, and there's 50 million other medications that could do the same. And you're like, why you want me to take this one? Like, you know what I mean? So I feel like it's the same thing. But yeah, I'll let Erica ask. Go ahead, Monique.
Before Erica answers, so I appreciate that, Regina, because I do think that it's important to recognize that there are several modalities that therapists can learn, but ultimately it's about knowing what the person in front of you needs the most. And it's also about the ability to be flexible, because you can come up with an initial treatment plan and it turn out that whatever it is that you're doing is not working in the intended way. So you have to be able to pivot. I also want to point out, Regina, that even though you are not a fan of CBT, a lot of what I have said today has had CBT woven into it as you were agreeing with it. But also the piece about cultural confidence, I do want to point out a little known fact that a lot of these modalities that we're talking about, actually pretty much all of these modalities that we're talking about, they're evidence-based modalities, and evidence-based means that there has been research and practice in order to determine what's most effective and how it best works and how best to administer these treatments, right? It's worth noting that most of the research that was not done on melanated folks. And so these approaches were developed based on research primarily done on white people, and the cultural factors obviously wouldn't be taken into consideration if you don't have people from other cultural backgrounds included in those studies. So cultural competence looks like knowing that and knowing how to approach whatever modality you use from the lens of how it works for the culture of the person that is sitting in front of you.
Okay, so I have a comment about that, and I have a question for you as well. I think it's important for people to know, well, women to know, well, people in general, that you can hire and fire your therapist. If they're not the type of person that, if they're not listening to what you're saying, it's okay to say, you know what, it's not gonna work out for me. I need to find someone else that I can relate to, because essentially you're telling this person, things that are wrong with you or things that you need help with. Well, not necessarily wrong, but things that you want to work on. So if you're not comfortable with that person, it's okay to say, this is not working for me. Let me go find someone else. I personally just started back therapy last week. I haven't seen that therapist in about 10 years, maybe 9 years. And so when I, got on the call, she's like, welcome back. And I'm like, hey. So, being able to relate to somebody who you feel comfortable with, I think is very important. But it's, women have to understand that just like a regular doctor in general or OBGYN, if you're not comfortable with that person, feel free to be like, I'm out. Like, I'm not dealing with this. So I want to say that, and then I also wanted to ask you, Monique, could you share a success story where your integrative approach has significantly helped a client manage anxiety, stress, or trauma? I think the audience would love to get some insight on that. And I'm asking for a friend as well. So just, you know.
Absolutely. Let me just say to your comment, I 100% agree. It is important for everyone who is in therapy to feel like the person that they are working with is offering a safe space, is hearing them, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel like there is the open communication and relationship to address what's working well, but also to address what's not and be able to pivot. That self-advocacy is a part of self-care. And if that is something that you struggle with, then that's something that can be a part of your treatment as well. But by all means, if your therapist does not work for you, consider what needs to change in order for that to happen. That could look like you speaking up and advocating for yourself and seeing if there's something that needs to be shifted there, or it could look like that's just not a good fit, and that's okay too. I have not been fired before, but if I were, I would be okay with it. I literally tell my clients in the intake session, if at any point this doesn't feel like it is helpful for you, that is something that I want to know. And if at any point it feels like this is not a good fit, that is okay. So I fully agree, and I appreciate that you mentioned that. Now your question, remind me what your question was.
What are some significant your integrative approach? What are some significant ways that you've helped a client manage stress, anxiety, and trauma?
Got you. So two of my clients that I've worked with come to mind. One of them, she's an administrator. She actually also comes from a therapeutic background, but chose to go the administrative route as opposed to doing like the one-on-one clinical work, and came to me struggling with anxiety and struggling with boundaries and struggling with self-care. And so we did an integrative approach. We used a combination of CBT and mindfulness. We created a self-care plan. We created a sleep hygiene plan. We worked on boundaries. And by the end of her work, like I still work with her now. We've been working together for years. And now she's at a place of maintenance. So she has achieved all of the primary goals that she came with. We see each other once a month. If something comes up, she can always reach out. And if I have the capacity, I'll see her sooner. But that for me is absolutely a testimony of how therapy can both help you in times of struggle, but also be used as a preventative measure. A lot of people look at therapy as, well, when something is wrong, you go to therapy and you get the help you need and then you walk away. And that's okay, because short-term therapy does have its place. But there's also the notion that therapy can be preventative, it can be for maintenance, and it can be for treatment. And it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Quick point to that. So when I went back to my therapist last week, I told her everything that was going on, and I'm like, "Fix me," and she's like, "You know that's not how it works." So in my mind, I'm like, "Okay, 1, 2, 3, boom, I'm fixed, I'm healed, and all that good stuff." What is the average time frame you're thinking about when you work with these clients to help them get to a maintenance level? Like, what does it look like? I know it's different from different people, but on an average, what do you think would be a good time frame for someone to consider going to therapy on a consistent basis?
So it depends on the type of therapy that we're talking about. There's short-term methods that are evidence-based, like CBT can be used in a short-term method, for example. And if you're using that from a short-term approach, that's between like 3 and 11 sessions. 3 and 11 sessions, if you're meeting every couple of weeks, that could easily be like a few months, and then you're done. And then they graduate from therapy and they can choose to move on. That's what short-term can look like. So I work as a therapist through an EAP company, and that's what we do. We primarily do CBT work. We infuse DBT, we infuse mindfulness, typically no more than 11 sessions within that short-term framework. But then in my private practice, I don't put timeframes in place. So it's about identifying the need, meeting the need, and doing what works for that client. Now, if at any point that client starts to use therapy as a crutch, then we need to start talking about where that's coming from and what it would look like to graduate and use what you've learned because you have what you need. And now you're just allowing this to be something that you're depending on versus recognizing your abilities and the skills that you have and that you actually can do this without having to have a therapist. But it also depends on the need. If someone is presenting with trauma, that could be longer term work. If someone is of the mindset that they want that preventative and maintenance option after they've done that initial treatment for something that might be acute at the time that they present, then that could look like a lot longer. I've had clients come for a few months, they reach their goals, they happily move on and use their skills. If they need help in the future, they reach out, all good. I also have clients that have been with me since I opened my practice in 2020 that are still with me, and they're in a place of maintenance. I see them once a month, I see them every 6 weeks, and they do what they got to do. If a crisis or something comes up where they need additional support, they have the option to reach out. I also have what looks like clients that I worked with at the past, and then they reintroduce at a time later. And I'm about to launch a wellness program that is focused on the mental health and wellness needs of Black women. I have folks that I worked with years ago who are now about to go through that program with me, and that's short term. It's a 6-week program where at the end of it, they will have at least 10 mental health skills that they can use. They will have experienced the sisterhood experience because it's a small group type of thing. And they're going to be like guided and supported along that whole journey. And that for them is like, okay, I need a dose of support. I need some sisterhood. I need the musical part of healing that's going to be a part of that program too. So in a nutshell, it's dependent on the situation and the need. I don't believe in identifying a specific prescribed time frame unless it is specifically a short-term therapy approach, because then that's what's indicated.
Thank you so much for explaining that, because I've heard people say things like, well, therapists, they're not going to fix you because that's how they eat. That's how they make their money. They're not going to really help you. And I'm like, you've clearly never been to therapy. It sounds like you might need it. No tea, no shade, because I need it, but so I do want to ask Monique, she talked about how she helps other people, but I want the tea on how she helps herself. But before she answers that question, we're going to take a quick little break. It is August, so that means it is Black Business Month. So for the month of August, I have made a commitment to, if you're interested, if you're a Black woman who owns a business, if you want to promote that business on the podcast, I'll be more than happy to do so for free. If you want to take advantage of that, please comment below and we'll get you sorted out. But in the meantime, let's take a look at a couple of businesses who have taken advantage of this offer. All right, and we're back. Why are you laughing at my commercial?
I was over here.
Oh. So, Monique, how do you practice what you preach with the boundaries and the self-care and maintaining your own peace of mind and your own mental wellness?
There's so many different things that I do, so I'm going to try to remember all of them, because it's the same way that I have an integrative approach for my clients, I have an integrative approach for how I take care of me. It starts with my relationship with God. God is where my peace and joy and gratitude and everything else comes from. So I start my day, like literally when I open my eyes, the first thing I do is pray. I pray for myself, I pray for my family, I pray over my children, etc. The next thing that I do is my devotional, because if I can ground my day in devotion and prayer, then I feel like I kind of have the covering and protection that I need for whatever may come during that day. And then I'm intentional about making sure that I work out every day. Moving your body is an essential part of self-care. There are so many benefits to it. And I intentionally say moving your body because I feel like people hear the word exercise and they immediately tune out. But whatever moving your body means for you, that could mean a walk, that could mean going for a run, that could mean dancing like Erica's over there doing, which I do at least a couple times a week. So I feel you on that. For me, that looks like a combination of things: lifting, spin classes, dance classes. It just depends on what works. But I move my body every day. I work out 5 to 6 days a week. So for me, it's prayer and devotion. It's making sure I get enough sleep. It's moving my body. It's drinking enough water. It's eating well so that I'm taking care of my body. I see you sipping. It's moving well so I can take care of my body. It's modeling what self-care looks like for my 2 baby girls, which is a huge part of the reason that I love the work that I do, because I'm supporting women, but I'm also modeling what it looks like to take care of yourself for my girls who will one day be women giving back in all of the ways that we do. Boundaries. I love boundaries. People around me will tell you. My best friend tells me all the time that he can't stand. No, I won't say he can't stand, but he's very aware of my boundaries and reminds me that everybody don't have boundaries the way that I do. So definitely boundaries are a part of that. Making time and space to be by myself, making time and space. Sometimes I go away, like once a quarter, and just go to a hotel of my choosing, especially if it's by the beach, and just allow my nervous system to reset and just practice gratitude and take care of myself and do whatever I feel like doing, or whatever I don't feel like doing, I'm not doing it. And there's no one else to take care of. I can focus on me and I can take care of me. So ultimately for me, it's about being intentional about whatever it is that I need and being able to be flexible in what that looks like, because what that looks like today might be different than what it looks like tomorrow. And to be very, very clear, I'm a therapist who has a therapist. So I see my therapist at least once a month, because you can't do what I do for a living, where you're essentially taking in and being exposed to other people's usually worst moments of their life, and not be in a position where you have someone to process with and to address your own self-care and to hold you accountable. I always say a therapist who has never had a therapist or is against going to a therapist is someone that would concern me. So those are the many ways that I take care of myself, and loving what I do. Huge part of taking care of me is loving what I do. I can wake up and be tired and just all out not feel like it. The moment that I get on the screen with these women that I love supporting, or the moment I'm at a conference like Regina's and I get to interact with all these people and help and support people, the amount of joy that I have, it's immeasurable. And I'm grateful that I figured out what I was meant to do early. And now I have a career where I get to do what I love and help people at the same time.
Can I just say, Monique really loves what she does. And Monique is really about that life out here in these mental wellness streets. Because let me tell you, the amount of times Monique done came for me because I was doing the most, came for me in a gentle way, I remember the first conference.
I mean, that's a lot of times, Monique. I understand. That means many, many times you've come for her. Got it.
Go back on mute. Go back on mute. I remember the first conference you attended. You were actually a vendor, and I was running around, and you were like, "Did you eat? No, I gotta do this. Did you have water? No." Yo, Monique made sure I had some fruit, some ice water, all of that, right? We were supposed to have this conversation last week, because if you guys are not new here, you know that I normally do these conversations Thursday evenings, but I wasn't feeling too hot. I just had surgery. I'm having another one in a couple weeks. And Monique was like, no, we'll do it another day. Like, she really practices what she preaches. And I hear you on the whole. If you have a therapist who doesn't believe in seeing a therapist for themselves, that is a huge red flag. I remember I was part of a Facebook group that was specifically for Black mental wellness providers, and one of them was like, "Yeah, I don't need therapy." And the way she said it was really like judgy, and I'm like, "How are you a whole therapist judging people for seeing therapy? Like, do you not want a client?" I don't get it. But Monique, you talked to us a little bit about your new coaching wellness program, which is different from therapy, because when you're a therapist, you can only see clients that are in the state in which you are licensed. But with the coaching wellness program, you can see anybody across the country. So why don't you tell us about that so we can get some more people signed up?
Yes, yes. So actually that's a really good point, and that's part of the reason that I decided to start doing coaching in the first place, is because in licensure you are limited to the state in which you're licensed. And for the purposes of therapy, until that is changed, I understand that. I get that. And therapy typically is for a higher level of need anyway. But for the folks who have more like a mild level of need, even at the bottom of that moderate level of need, I get the opportunity to work with anyone, anywhere through my coaching program. And I love that. So this is my growth book journal that I love, love, love. So yes, look at that. Y'all on it. It just popped right up on the screen. So the skills that are in that particular book, which that's my first baby, that's the first published work that I put out through my practice. And that is the basis of the program. So there are at least 10 different skills in there that we're actually practicing, learning, getting the foundational knowledge of, and we're doing that together in a small group experience. So it's a small group of up to 10 Black women. Anyone from anywhere can be a part of it. We have 3 live sessions throughout that 6-week experience. So in the beginning, in the middle, and at the end for graduation. If you are a part of that group experience and you don't have the journal, then you are gifted the journal as a part of that. And we literally walk through all of the skills in there and we practice them and we learn how to put them in place and we support one another. And then there is the healing power of music and spoken word infused into it as well. Spoken word and music is really healing for us, and it's something that really resonates for us as a community. So I just couldn't do my program without including that. So actually, this program is a program that is a relatively high ticket program, but right now I'm doing a special where it is discounted at more than 80% of the original price. Yes. And so that gives a lot more people access, and it gives the opportunity to experience something that will be truly transformative. And we only have 3 spots left. So for those that are listening, reach out. You can be one of the 3. We start on August 26th. That's going to be our first live session. And I'm so excited about it. And I'm really, really looking forward to it. And the way that God has moved in the signups for this program, I only opened this up to folks a week ago, and we got 7 out of 10 signups in a week. So look at God.
Can I just say I'm not surprised because number 1, I have the journal. Number 2, Erica has the journal, and the journal is so bomb that a colleague of ours who does peer support, she loved the journal so much that she bought Monique's journal in bulk so she can use that in her coaching program. And I believe, Erica, you were part of that program. Can you
Yes,
tell
I
us
was going to ask about that. I got a big box, like randomly. I wasn't even expecting it at the time. Showed up at my door, and I'm like, "What is all this?" It was a bunch of self-care stuff, and your book is one of the books that are in there. And I was like, "That's the book. That book." So that's so dope. I love that for you. So yes, absolutely, I love it. Sign up, people. Sign up.
For real, sign up. Like Erica said, it's so dope, and we're so proud of you. I know we're all high achieving and we be like doing the most and all that stuff, but like you said, Monique, earlier, you love what you do, so it doesn't feel like you're doing the most, right? You're super passionate about this. We can feel it, we can see it in your face, we can see it in that journal that you put your foot in, girl. Okay. So I mean, I'm not just talking out of my butt. Like, I'm not one of those people. Like, if I don't like something, I don't like it. As y'all clearly see, I gave the thumbs down to a couple things. So like, I'm not just blowing smoke. Like, Monique is legit. Like, on a personal level and on a professional level, get the journal, sign up for the coaching program, because I know for sure it's going to be helpful for you. Erica went through the journal. I went through the journal. Monique says she only got 3 spots left, so y'all better hurry up and gang up. Just saying.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And just a note for future reference, the coaching program is something that will be happening ongoing, but this particular special pricing will not be there ongoing. And a second note, the second part of that growth book journal should be out by the end of the year.
Ooh, okay. That is my bad. I got so excited that the audio done crashed out, chat. So we only have like three more minutes left in the podcast. Erica, did you have any last minute questions or comments for Monique?
Yes. What is one piece of advice you would leave me, the listeners, about maintaining their peace of mind? I think it's very important because for somebody like me, I can overthink and I can kind of put my feelings to the side and focus on how somebody else is feeling, like, oh, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings, or I don't want them to be mad at me, or things of that nature. And then I start running ragged and I'm not at peace. So what advice can you give the audience, the listeners, on maintaining their peace of mind?
Yes. So for you and the audience, the listeners, I would say first and foremost, take care of yourself before you take care of anyone else. It's not selfish, it is necessary. And when you take care of yourself, you put yourself in a better position to show up in a better way for those that you care about. So me in 100% capacity is the best me I can be for me first, but then for my kids and or partner and or parents, and fill in the blank. So first and foremost, take good care of yourself. That piece about not feeling bad about it or not wanting other people to feel a particular way, unpopular opinion, but this is also factual. You're not responsible for other people's feelings. If they feel what they feel, they are allowed to feel that. If they can come to you and want to have a conversation, you two can have that conversation, but let other people be responsible for their feelings and focus on your responsibility for your own feelings and being a clear person who can communicate what your needs are, what your feelings are, etc. But your choices about how you take care of yourself can't be predicated on other people's feelings. And one last thing that I would like to add, so I have the Women's Growth Book Journal, the Sisters Growth Book Journal, which I just told you guys. I also have the Children's, the Children's Growth Book Journal. So this one is for social and emotional development. So for children up through about junior high school, to learn emotional awareness, to learn what emotions are, to not be the many people that show up in their 20s, 30s, and 40s who can't identify what they're feeling. Not saying that it is their fault, but we're in a unique position to help young people become better. The other one is the adolescent one, which is all about those things, but also learning how to set goals, learning how to actually achieve the goals that you set, learning how to make healthy friendship choices, learning how to make healthy partner relationship choices. So all of the things in the children's one, plus the added things that developmentally are appropriate for teenagers.
So the two books, the children's book and the adolescent, it could be for either boys or girls. And can we get those on your website, strengthredefined.com?
Yes, they are all on my website. If you go on my website and select Growth Book Journals, then all of them are there. They're also on Amazon. If you're going to order more than one, reach out to me through the contact form and you get a discount for a bulk order. So just keep that in mind. And in terms of the coaching program, we start August 26th. We have 3 spots left. They will not last long, nor will this price. So we look forward to hearing from you.
Yes.
Will these be available at the conference?
What was that?
Will the journals be available at the conference in October?
I always have journals with me. So, but Regina and I will discuss those logistics.
Okay.
Yes, we will. I'm hoping that's a yes.
Yes, that's a yes. Let's just go ahead and clarify. It's a yes.
Okay, there we go. Well, thank you so much, Monique, for coming on today. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise. Thank you for breaking stuff down for us and explaining stuff for us. Because like I said, I am no clinician by any stretch of the imagination. I am sharing, my thoughts, feelings, from my personal lived experience. So it's always nice to have someone who looks like us, who has been in our shoes, who took the time to go, get the education, get the schooling, to learn this and to help us and to explain it to us, not only from a theoretical standpoint, but also from a lived experience, cultural, societal standpoint. And thank you for all the work that you do out here in these mental wellness streets. We really do appreciate it. So yeah, please visit her website, get the journals, sign up for the coaching program, and that's the end of the conversation.
How else can they get in contact with you? Like, is there social media or anything?
Yes, so I'm on Facebook under Strength Redefined, and to clarify, Redefined is spelled Redefy. So it's the word defy in the middle, because we are defying the definitions and beliefs, etc., that are often put on us from other people. So Strength Redefined is the Facebook name. I'm on LinkedIn under Monique Williams, LCSW. I'm on Instagram under Strength Redefined as well, or that one might be S Redefined actually. But yes, I